This post is going up a little later than we intended. We may or may not have been in a food coma these past few weeks from indulging in way too much at the 2019 Epcot International Food and Wine Festival in Walt Disney World. Thankfully, we've recovered a bit, and we're here to tell you about the best, and this time also the worst, of the fest.
That's right. Backed by popular demand, we'll detail our top 10 best food items at this festival. And at your request, we'll also include a dozen or so dishes that you can't go wrong with. The dishes that are essentially classics to the festival or are just good, crowd-pleasing favorites. Plus, we'll fill you in on the worst bites we tried so you know what to skip to save room and money for the many can't-miss items instead.
Before that, we want to take a moment to thank you so much for being here. We're loving sharing our experiences with you and hearing how you're seeking the magical too on your Disney vacations. So please leave a comment below with your feedback or any questions you have. Give this video a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel so you can be a part of the magic too. Now, let's get to the food.
Our top 10 best of the fest list starts at the Africa booth in the outpost area between China and Germany in the World Showcase. Coming in at number 10 is the Kenyan Coffee Barbecue Beef Tenderloin with sweet potato and corn mealy pop and kachumbari slaw for $5.75.
This dish was basically perfection flavor-wise, with great balance between the components. The tang of the slaw perfectly complemented the smoke of the barbecue and the richness of the rub. Sadly, it has one not-so-tiny flaw. The meat tends to be a tad overdone. Ours was, and we've heard this has been an ongoing issue. Even with that though, it's still good enough to make it on our top 10 list, and it would be substantially higher if the meat was more tender.
We found the next best dish in the China Pavilion, right next to the outpost. Here, we especially love the Wuxi spare ribs sold for $6.95.
This is one of those dishes that tastes far better than it looks anyway, but we also were hampered from taking any decent photos of it because right as we were picking up our order, we were hit with a Florida downpour. We had to quickly grab our dishes, try to cover them however we could, and run for shelter in the little shop next door to the outdoor food booth. It had only been raining for maybe 15 seconds by the time we got in there, but we were still close to drenched. It was one of those kinds of storms, where the sky opened and just dumped it all out.
Even after being doused in a bit of rain, the ribs were really delicious. They were sweet and somewhat spicy, and the meat was close to falling off the bone on its own. I say don't bother with a knife and fork. Just pick these up with your hands and dig in. Trust me, you'll want to lick the sauce off your fingers when you're done.
While Brian and I largely agree on most of the dishes on our top 10 list, we do diverge on a few, and number 8 is one of those dishes.
I won! Sausage made in the top 10.
Yes, you won. Congratulations to you and the sausage.
Thanks! Our 8th top dish is the roasted Irish sausage with cold canned potatoes and onion gravy for $5.50 from the Ireland booth.
It's not that this is a bad dish per se, it's just sausage.
That's right, delicious sausage. This dish is the epitome of the concept that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Individually, the sausage, potatoes, and onion gravy were all good, but when consumed together, they were excellent. I especially love the sweet zing of the onion gravy, and the sausage was very well made with a non-fleshy casing and a mild spice. I can see why it's a returning favorite to the festival year after year.
Moving on. Coming in at number 7 is a dish that we both agree on. The duck confit poutine with fig demi-sauce and brie cheese fondue from the refreshment outpost between the World Showcase Plaza and Canada.
Selling for $8.49, the dish was a hearty portion size of arguably the best untraditional poutine Disney has ever offered. Poutine is typically made up of French fries, brown gravy, and cheese curds, and this version certainly took a lot of liberty on the last two components. The fig demi-sauce was very light, while the brie fondue essentially took over as the gravy of the dish. We aren't complaining though, because we loved it. It was a great duck confit, and the amount included for the price was stellar.
Next up, we have the Steakhouse Blended Burger from the Flavors from Fire booth hosted by ESPN's College Game Day as the 6th best dish at the festival.
This slider costs $5.25 and is made up of blended beef and mushrooms with a brie cheese fondue, arugula, and a truffle and blue cheese potato chip on a brioche bun.
While the slider was on the smaller side, it packed so much flavor and every element was well executed. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of blue cheese, but I thought the potato chip was exceptional. I loved how it added a hard bite along with the tang of the cheese and the way it layered with the earthier element of the mushrooms.
Beyond the fact that this slider was delicious, we enjoyed being able to chill a little in the backyard cookout area they set up for this booth in addition to the fire pit out front. When one is usually relegated to using a trash can as a table at Epcot festivals, it was a welcome break.
Surprisingly, number 5 is the first and only dessert that made our top 10. Certain Epcot festivals are more dessert heavy than others, so this distinction isn't entirely shocking at the Food and Wine Festival, where there's a higher percentage of savory options overall. Still, the desserts are usually standouts for us and factor into our best of list more prominently. The only one that made the cut this time landed at number 5, and that is the passion fruit cheesecake with toasted macadamia nuts for $4 from the Hawaii booth.
This is another returning favorite from previous years, but it was more than worth getting again. In fact, it might have been better this year than before. The cheesecake itself is very light while still being obviously indulgent, and the passion fruit plays with the richness of it, instead of being an overpowering flavor. The added texture from the macadamia nuts took it from great to extraordinary. Besides being a satisfying dessert flavor-wise, it's an ample portion size, especially for $4. Heck, a bottle of water now costs $3.50 in the parks. I consider $4 for a delicious restaurant-quality dessert to be a steal.
Coming in at number 4, just shy of meddling, is the Black Pepper Boursin Soufflé with fig marmalade from the Cheese Studio, hosted by Boursin Cheese, selling for $5.
This dish is the indisputable star of a new official cheese crawl at the Food and Wine Festival this year. Participants in the crawl must purchase 5 designated dishes containing cheese from various food booths and obtain a stamp for each in their festival passport. Once completed, participants are invited to bring their passport to Shimmering Sips Mimosa Bar for a complimentary cheesecake. This experience is perhaps aptly named Emil's Fromage Montage.
If you recall, Emile is Remy's brother from Ratatouille. Unlike the famous little chef, Emile is the one who can't tell the difference between food and trash. Sadly, we think Emile got mixed up on a few of the items he included in the crawl, because there were some winners in the 5 designated dishes, like this cheese souffle, but there were also some definite losers.
We put together a whole video about whether the crawl is worth it, including the dishes we highly recommend from it, and some much better alternatives to a couple as well. You can check it out using the link here in the upper right hand corner at the end of this video or in the notes below. We hope it saves you some time and money and stomach space at the festival.
While we go into additional detail about the cheese souffle in that video, we must note here that this brand new dish is a standout thanks to its complex flavor profile and delicious fluffy texture. We were hooked by the subtle notes of peppercorn mixed with the depth of the cheese and the acidity and honey-like sweetness of the marmalade. If you're looking for a truly unique adult dish at the festival, this is it.
Grabbing the bronze medal this year is the all-new pasta dish from the Italy booth. The ravioli carbonara made with Parmesan and Pecorino ravioli, egg yolk, cream, and bacon, selling for $7.25.
Sadly, the name is a little deceptive here, since an authentic carbonara doesn't include cream. But I can't fault the misnomer too much, since the dish was delicious. It wasn't a culinary epiphany or anything, but it's one I would go back for again and again given the opportunity. It was another cheese dish done really well.
Hello, Disney. Why wasn't this on Emil's Fromage Montage?
Probably because they knew it would sell on its own.
True.
Unlike the cheese souffle that is on the crawl, the ravioli is certainly not unique. However, it is well done comfort food that is absolutely craveable. And I think that matters more. It will appeal to a wide variety of palates, including pickier eaters.
Agreed. Plus, 5 large raviolis and a hearty helping of bacon is a pretty good deal for the price.
Now, we've come to the runner-up. The winner of the silver medal is another newbie at this year's festival, this time from the Coastal Eats booth. It's the Pacifico True Striped Bass Tostada with slaw and fire-roasted tomatillo sauce, selling for $6. As I'm allergic to seafood, I didn't try this one, so it's all you, babe.
Yep, it's a tough job trying all the seafood and keeping it for myself. Real tough. But I'll eat the dish for the cause over and over again. There were a number of great seafood options at the festival this year, but this was the only one that truly impressed me. The textures and flavors were perfectly balanced. The tostada was light and crunchy. The fish was firm and full of flavor. The slaw was crisp and zesty. The tomatillo packed the right amount of acid. The bass is a well-crafted, complex dish, and I loved it. Kudos to the chef.
Without further ado, we're excited to tell you the best dish at the 2019 Epcot International Food and Wine Festival is the taco de puerco, made with shredded pork belly on a corn tortilla with salsa verde, selling for $6.50 from the Mexico booth.
Wait, what? Tacos?
Yes, tacos! Delicious, scrumptious, hit-the-spot tacos every day of the week.
These tacos are new to the festival this year, and you should know they're a huge improvement from some of the selections this booth has had in the past, and another they still have now.
More on that later, but yeah. The taco de puerco isn't original to Epcot or complicated. It's a simple dish made with pretty standard ingredients, but it was wonderful. On a hot, humid day like most days in Epcot, I would be thrilled to sit down with several of these tacos and a margarita and just watch the crowds go by.
That sounds amazing. We agree. The taco was truly delicious, and it was the most craveable, memorable, must go back for seconds and thirds dish we had at the entire festival. So good.
Now that we've made everyone sufficiently hungry with our best of list, should we quickly tell them about the dishes they can't go wrong with before the palate cleanser of the worst of the fest?
That's probably a good idea. Please know there are 100 plus food options at the Food and Wine Festival, so we won't take time going into much detail as to why we really like these. We'll just give you a rundown of the classics and new options that were noteworthy but not quite good enough to make it onto our top 10.
Sounds good. Taking it alphabetically then by booth, you can't go wrong with the golden malted Belgian waffle with whipped cream and either warm chocolate ganache or berry compote from Belgium.
The pão de queijo, or Brazilian cheese bread, was the other standout of the cheese crawl that we highly recommend, and you can find that at the Brazil booth between Morocco and France.
Canada is back with the perennial favorites of the Canadian cheddar cheese and bacon soup, served with a pretzel roll, and the Le Cellier wild mushroom beef filet mignon with truffle butter sauce. The soup is always great, but I think the latter was much better this year than before, as they toned down the overuse of the fake truffle. Huge improvement.
One of the best dishes of the festival from the past couple years returned to the Hawaii booth, and that's the teriyaki glazed Spam hash with potatoes, peppers, onions, and spicy mayonnaise. Yes, it's Spam, and it's tasty.
Circling back around to Italy, we must give this pavilion the nod for the best overall booth at the fest. Really, everything on the menu was great. The ribs and the chocolate hazelnut cake were particularly delectable. But we oddly need to call special attention to the polo, the crispy chicken with marinara sauce. Yes, the dish is just basic chicken strips with a side of marinara, but the proportion of meat to breading was dead on. Plus, they were moist and flavorful. I don't mind the typical chicken strips one can get in the park. They're decent, but these were a huge improvement, not to mention a better value for the price. If you like chicken strips, get these.
From the Shimmering Sips Mimosa Bar, you should pick up the Cheesecake Trio with raspberry, chocolate, and New York-style bites. Just look at it. Need I say more?
If you're craving a little spice, we highly recommend the Red Hot Spicy Thai Curry Beef with steamed rice from the Thailand booth. Meanwhile, if you want a much milder, sweeter sauce from Thailand, then grab the marinated chicken with peanut sauce and stir-fried vegetables.
Finally, you can head over to the Wine and Dine studio for two returning favorites, the seared scallops with truffled celery root puree, Brussels sprouts, and wild mushrooms, as well as the butternut squash ravioli with brown butter vinaigrette, Parmesan cheese, and pumpkin seeds. Both are crowd-pleasing classics.
Wow, that's a lot of great options. We know you will have your work cut out for you to eat all of those.
Which is why we're also going to tell you the dishes you should skip. The ones that aren't worth your time, money, or hunger, so you can save room for the best options.
Exactly. The worst of the fest is not a happy topic, but I find myself almost wishing we had a longer list so we could give everyone more of a reprieve. But we must keep it real. In truth, there were a lot of dishes we tried that weren't great this year. There were far too many mediocre dishes, and sadly, most of what we ate was entirely forgettable.
However, there are only 4 dishes we strongly advise you not to get. Notably, Only one of these dishes sinks to the level of unswallowable swill, but all 4 are not worth your time or money.
The first is ironically from the Mexico booth. Standing in stark contrast to the taco de puerco is the tostada de carne, which is braised beef on a corn tostada with mole oaxaqueño and chicharrón dust, selling for $6.95. While this dish sounds good in theory, it was not. Everything about it was off and poorly prepared. The mole was especially disastrous, the meat was tough, and the tostada fought the melding of the flavors. We say just get an order or 2 of the taco de puerco and skip the tostada.
Another dish we recommend skipping is the roasted lamb chop with sweet potato puree, bushberry pea salad, and pistachio pomegranate gremolata from the Australia booth, selling for $7.75. On this one, the lamb was quite good actually, but the gremolata was all off. Also, the portion size is small for the price considering the vast majority of the lamb chop is bone. Still, our big issue with it lies in the sauce, which was not properly seasoned and left a bad taste in our mouths. The pros of this dish did not outweigh the cons for us.
The next dish was the biggest disappointment of them all, as I did not anticipate Disney messing up melted cheese and a few accompaniments, but they managed it. The warm raclette Swiss cheese with baby potatoes, cornichons, and baguette, selling for $5 at the Alps booth, sounded like a great addition to this year's festival, but it ended up being a major bummer. It wasn't straight up bad, but it was far from good. The potatoes were undercooked and underseasoned, the bread was just a stale baguette, and the cheese was poor quality, quickly going from melty to a rubbery pile that was impossible to spread on anything, and lacking in real flavor.
This raclette dish is one of the required selections on the cheese crawl that we referenced earlier, but it's regrettably not the worst part. The worst part of Emil's Fromage montage is the same as the worst of the festival overall. That is, the impossible cottage pie made with impossible ground meat, carrots, mushrooms, and peas, topped with mashed cauliflower, white beans, and mozzarella from Earth Eats for $5.
In our video about the cheese crawl, we go into somewhat graphic detail about how awful this dish was, so we'll try and spare you some of that here. Just know if there is one thing we could untaste that we've tried in the past 5+ years, it would be the impossible cottage pie. It was that bad. We regret ever letting it cross our lips, and now we'll try not to utter another word about it. Just heed our warning on this one and stay away.
Well, that's that. The best of the fest, the worst of the fest, and the classics you can't go wrong with. I hate leaving things on such a downer note with the worst list when so much of the festival was amazing.
I agree. I love the Food and Wine Festival, and I was thrilled with many of the dishes and pleasantly surprised by many more this year. None of this is to hate on the Food and Wine Festival. Our goal is to help you decide where to best spend your time and money to have the most magical Disney adventure possible.
That's right. So please remember to subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Like our video, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching again. Until next time, remember to hug your loved ones, cherish the memories, and always continue seeking the magical.